Picture the next decade. What do you see? Stronger communities breathing healthier air. Buildings that are fossil-free. Transportation powered by clean energy. Acterra is working toward this brighter future by empowering youth, educating the next generation of climate leaders, by working to ensure healthy, nutritious food for all, and a food system that is equitable, affordable, sustainable, and zero waste. By resourcing workplace sustainability, green teams, and shining a light on business leadership. Making sure neighbors have access to EV charging, fossil-free energy, and green jobs. Our community is building this future right here in the Bay Area, bringing people together to create local solutions to the biggest challenge of our time. What can you do? Support a healthy planet and healthy communities. Promote climate justice. Make a difference by joining our movement. Believe in this future, together with us.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Katie Escoffier, and I'm your MC for the evening. And I'm also a board member of Acterra, Action for a Healthy Planet. Welcome to Promise to Our Planet. Tonight's theme is Charting Progress, Celebrating Community. I want to take this opportunity to recognize that Acterra's office sits on the ancestral land of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Ohlone people. Consistent with our values of community and inclusion, we have a responsibility to acknowledge, honor, and make visible our relationship to Native peoples. There are a lot of people here tonight attending the event, so please keep your video and microphones off, but please use the chat to share your thoughts. Also, a quick thank you to Thrive Alliance Translation Services Hub for tonight's Spanish closed captioning. To start the evening off, a few words from our Executive Director, Lauren Weston.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Weston. I'm the Executive Director of Acterra, Action for a Healthy Planet, and I get the pleasure of welcoming you to our event. Some of you have already been here. You were here for our networking session, so thank you so much for staying with us and participating in active networking, sharing your time and energy with our community members. For those of you just joining, we have an amazing lineup of speakers ahead, so I'm so glad you could spend the rest of your evening with us. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff tonight. We're going to have awardees that represent many facets of work happening in our local communities, elevating local champions. We're going to have speakers talking about their work in the electrification and policy space, education space, food space, everything that you're so closely attached to at Acterra, you'll see represented tonight. We also have the pleasure of working with some amazing virtual infrastructure. Those of you that are familiar with Zoom will see where we're using Zoom this year. Hopefully you guys are all experts at it. And if you're not, please just know that we aren't really either. So if you've got questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. We are virtual this year, as we have been the last 3 years, because we want to make sure we're as accessible for community members as possible. Staying virtual has allowed us to keep our costs for attendance for this event low enough that it's reduced barriers for attendance, which is our ultimate goal. Thank you so much for helping us manage that and keeping this event as accessible to our community members as possible. I also get to thank our amazing sponsors this evening. Our supporter level sponsors start with the City of Palo Alto, where we're housed, City of Hayward, Katie and Jean-Louis Escoffier, and Peter and Melanie Cross. Both Katie and Peter are board members. Thank you so much for your continued generosity in serving Acterra as board members as you do. For our benefactor level, we have the Peninsula Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Clean Energy CCAs joining us. We have the County of San Mateo Office of Sustainability and the Santa Clara County Supervisor through Joe Smidian's office. We also have Rethink Waste, Heising Simons Foundation, and Langen. At our community level, we have Arkin Tilt Architects and Minerva Consulting. Thank you all so much for continuing to support Acterra in our work and joining us every year as you do. It makes all the difference, and it makes this entire event possible. I also get the pleasure of introducing our Youth Speaks poet, Damani Thomas. Damani Thomas is a writer from Oakland, California, and they are interested in the tiny moments that capture attention spans. Damani has received invitations to fellow from the Watering Hole, Foglifter, Afro Urban Society, and UC Berkeley's Art and Research Center via the Engaging the Senses Foundation. His work can be found in the Auburn Avenue, the Shade Journal, and elsewhere. In 2022, he was longlisted for the Emerging Poet Prize and a semi-finalist for the Pink Poetry Prize. His chapbook, Grown Up Elementary, is now available via Nomadic Press Oakland. Outside of poetry, you can catch them studying horror movies, dancing, or eating too many fries, which sounds like a person close to my heart. Welcome, Damani Thomas. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Damani Thomas. I'm from Oakland, California, which is also Ohlone territory, occupied land. And before I get into the poem, just think it's important that we just acknowledge the land of the people we're on. And there are very tangible and actionable ways that we can support those folks, especially through things like the Shumi land tax, which I'm sure we can provide information for. But yeah, so today I'll be reading a poem, and this is called "The World Ends in Many Ways, Just Not This One." At the end of the world, I imagine love a currency. I imagine apologies. I imagine forgiveness. I imagine politicians selling the last tickets to space from a welfare office turned Starbucks, turned Uber office, turned high-rise condo, turned corporation overlooking Armageddon, and still, security maintains a gated community. We should know how we got here. Not in the military sense, how a missile deployed in anger makes a continent small, but in the way I know affection leaving a friend's mouth makes love big. I'm thinking about the square root of time. Everything begins with breath. Science will call it a second. So scientifically, sunsets with someone I love takes my seconds away. And fireworks take my seconds away. And oil spills take my seconds away. Did you know that when catastrophic events occur, animals will often guide each other to safety? A dog helps a baby deer cross the road. A swan feeds starving fish. A tiger keeps a goat warm. And one time, we watched a hurricane tear through a city full of culture, a city known for drunken happiness. We waited by a phone for days just to know if those we called family made it out alive. We held our seconds, and when the phone rang, we took them back. There are 60 seconds in a minute, about 3,600 seconds in an hour, 86,400 in a day. It takes about 5 seconds to introduce yourself. It takes about 90 days for a plant to grow. That's 7,776,000 seconds. Over the course of about 300 seconds, Whitney told us how much she wanted to dance with somebody. It took 180 for Frank to tell us a love story. I guess I'm trying to say we have so much time, so many breaths to tell a story. In Oakland, a few years ago, smoke made a strange orange of our sky. Wildfires shaded the city pastel. For the longest, we thought the moon was a rumor. For 40 days and 40 nights, we saw a bright burning ball and called humidifiers Noah's Ark. Next time, because oftentimes there is a next time, there will be no magic, just actions. A community interested in saving each other's lives more than a profit. A community that gave back to the earth more than they took. A community that saw a blue ocean and said, let's keep it that way. I imagine the only jobs that matter in the apocalypse are these: poets, documentarians, people that can make party of leftovers, people that say climate change, then look at their babies and refuse to leave them with breadcrumbs. I imagine waving at the last spaceship would feel like losing a birthday balloon. I imagine these things, and I'm left with an earth covered in ginger, an earth that smells of lemon rinds every other breath like a metronome. And here's where the healing begins. Left alone with scraps, like always. like we haven't before. Thank you all for listening. Excited to be here, well, virtually anyway. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Damani, thank you so much. I love these additions to our events because they can really bring so much emotion and realism and pragmatism and joy and grief and all of the emotions that come with climate activism into one beautiful piece of poetry. Thank you, thank you. I am going to introduce next our local Senator Becker. He's a celebrity to all of us, I imagine. We feel like we know him so well here at Acterra because he's been such a longtime supporter of our work. And in some ways, we follow his lead in how to do the work better. State Senator Josh Becker, who represents District 13, is a public policy innovator working at the nexus of community activism, technology, and social justice. Elected to the state Senate in November of 2020, Senator Becker represents the residents of the 13th district in California, which comprises most of San Mateo County and the northern part of Santa Clara County. He is the author of several bills focusing on accelerating California's transition to 100% clean energy and net zero emissions, as well as voter access and justice reforms, which we can't forget how critical that is to all of our work, and is leveraging technology to provide greater economic mobility for all Californians. Senator Becker, it's your turn.
Hi, this is State Senator Josh Becker. Excited to engage with you all on what has to happen in California climate policy. How are we going to reshape every aspect of our economy as we need to do to meet our goals? Got a lot to go through, so we're going to move quickly, and I'm sure you'll have a great discussion and look forward to discussing with you at some other date. Okay, here we go. When, as you know, we're the first generation to feel the effects of climate change and the last generation who can do something about it. That is our charge here today. And California has made significant progress. As you can see, this was our goal below to be below 20% below 1990 levels. You can see progress we've made, and we did it while growing GDP. So we increased GDP about 60% while lowering our emissions over 20%. But it gets a lot harder from here. Our goal is 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. And this is I don't know if you'll be able to see this chart, but the dotted line is if we keep the same rate of reduction, where will we be? And the other lines show where we actually needed to reach the 2050 goal. So almost 5% a year. We've been reducing about 1% a year. Where do the emissions come from? Almost 50% from transportation. That won't be a surprise. That does include emissions from fuel extraction and refining. About 30 to 35% is that passenger cars. Only 16% from electricity, but that demand is going to probably double as we electrify other sectors. 10% from natural gas for building heating, which we're very focused on that. 11% from methane. 8% from industrial sources, including cement and concrete, which is, are globally 8% of emissions. That's a little less so here in California. And then refrigerants and other gases. These are all gases. These are all things that we need to tackle. So the overall strategy, we have to green the grid. That's the foundation for everything else. We don't get the benefits of EVs or electric heating and heat pumps unless we green the grid and get that to 100%. Right now it's about 50% clean, but as I mentioned, we're going to significantly increase our electricity use in this state. Electrify as much as possible. Low carbon fuels for hard to electrify use cases like aircraft, ocean vessels. It's actually a big factor of us because the ports are the most polluting really part of the state right now. Long distance trucking. We will need, I know this is controversial, we will need carbon capture and storage as a tool to reduce emissions when alternatives are unrealistic in some areas, including cement and some industrial heat. And then we will need to reduce emissions of things like methane and refrigerants. and then carbon dioxide removal to get the balance, and we'll talk more about that. We have to do this, and the opportunities to do this while we're actually increasing in environmental justice. As you know, right now, many of the most polluting facilities are in low-income communities. And we have an opportunity to do this and actually get jobs for people while also cleaning up the communities and making sure that we upgrade housing quality as part of decarbonized buildings. So lots of opportunities here to actually increase environmental justice and not be against the working somehow counter to the environmental justice community. The state must lead the way. I had a bill last year that got passed, 1203, to require state agencies to get to net zero by 2035. So that means all of our fleet, all of our buildings, all of our electricity. And by doing so, we bring down the cost of these technologies for everybody else by 2045. Now we passed into law, finally, as of last year, to codify that target for 2045. 85% of that has to come from emissions reductions to get to net zero. 15% can come otherwise from offsets, which we will discuss. Some of the bills that I passed, one is 1158. This is the roadmap to 24/7 clean energy. We have to tackle the peak, as you can see from this chart from an October day in 2021. We are not using a lot of fossil fuels during the day because we have so much solar, but the fossil fuel use really significantly increases once we hit the 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock time frame, which is why we not only need EVs, we need everybody opting in to manage charging so they're not charging EVs at the peak. One of the things we need to do, but we need lots of clean energy even when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. And this bill allows for hourly accounting, so we'll know every hour of the day what percent each load serving entity, each utility is using, and what percent of that is clean. And this will help us as we move towards things like offshore wind, geothermal, other things, and batteries that are not correlated, obviously, with solar, and then batteries for additional storage. Terrebonne bill financing, we need to be able to finance our building decarbonization so that people, not everyone can buy a heat pump up front, an electric hot water heat up front, a induction cooktop up front. So we need to be providing ways for people to finance those and pay for those over time as they get the benefits over time. And that's what this bill will help do. And we need interim goals for 100% clean energy. This was a bill I did my first year, we got passed it last year as part of a broader bill. So we actually now have interim targets to 90% by 2035 and 95% by 2040. Small and medium-sized cities are critical parts of this solution. And everything I do is very synergistic with our cities in the peninsula here, leading the way. That proves things out that I can help replicate. And then also I need to create the conditions so that cities can push even further. And it matters. Suburban areas like the peninsula account for half the total of U.S. household carbon footprints. And as we know here, we've led the way here with Menlo Park having the first REACH code and 44 cities and early cities leading in other ways as well. But this is particularly around all electric new building requirements. And now we have large cities like San Jose, Sacramento, Oakland, now New York City. So this is an impact. This is an example of impact that we can have. And this is the broader view of building gas bans and electrification REACH codes. So we need this critical enabling legislation, the details now of all of this rollout, now that we've finally set some of these more ambitious, higher targets. Here's some of my bills that have been signed in, including some of the climate bills. And we have to prioritize in the budget. I'm very happy to say that my new assignment in the Capitol is I chair Budget Subcommittee 2. This is a subcommittee that includes all climate, all natural resources, all water, all forests, wildfires, all of that. And in the budget last year, we had a massive commitment, put in a lot of money, governors now haircut some of that of the future spend, and we'll now be in dialogue around that. But even most of his haircuts were only about 10%. But we put in over $2 billion for heavy duty zero emission vehicles, $1.5 billion for electric school buses, almost $1 billion for building decarbonization. These will all help the incentives that we need to move. And then we have to leverage this with the federal incentives from the IRA. And I was with David Hochschild yesterday from the California Energy Commission. And we now have to make sure that we're really leveraging and stacking those incentives so that we can make it as beneficial and attractive and digestible and understandable to everyone as possible, so that they use these incentives to decarbonize their homes, to buy electric vehicles, all the things that we need to do. In 2023, we'll be back with a lot of efforts we're working on right now. Really, greening buildings and large buildings is a huge priority. Most heating and water heating is powered by methane gas. And there are now a few states that have started to work on what we call building performance standards, so really large buildings. We know from benchmarking, we know what, you tell us a square foot of a large building, we know what their energy efficiency use really should be. And so now we have to require them to meet those targets and do so over time, meet more stringent requirements. So that's part of what we're working on. And then at the residential level, again, a set of related financial support programs to help people be able to finance this and build this workforce also over time. As proud as we get $4.5 million for, again, a source locally at the local level to focus on this kind of building decarbonization that can also build jobs here at the local level. Solar canopies, France just mandated this, as you may know. We have, believe it's millions of acres of parking lots in this country for sure, and massive amount here in California. These are wasted spaces. What we should do, if we're going to have parking lots, we should make sure that we build a solar on top of them. Tax policies really, I was just talking even to folks at the Utility Reform Network. They believe the tax policy has not been used enough to help shape our goals in areas like this. And this is really about tax incentives to do this. Interconnection, as you know, PG&E has been extremely slow in actually hooking people up and doing what we need to do. I had a bill on this last year, got stripped out of our SB 68, which was about better information, better technology, better service in terms of having electric-ready homes. And now what we need to do, we're going to come back, and we're actually working with the IBEW on this interconnection effort. That's going to be, I think, one of the big bills this session. Transmission, one-stop shop approval. We will never meet our goals. I just can't tell you what a backlog there is around transmission, and we will not hit our goals unless we build more transmissions. One of the wonky parts that we need to do. And so this is something working with the Clean Air Task Force to create a one-stop shop on transmission, going to be really helpful. And then closing the gap with carbon dioxide removal. This is not carbon capture. This is the direct air capture. If you've heard about, say, companies like Climeworks, this is Heirloom Carbon, which is capturing CO2 in cement, or folks like Carbon Built and Gaurav Sant, who leads the advanced building programs at UCLA. So there's a lot of innovation going on, but we need to create that long-term predictable market. According to CARB, even in their most aggressive net zero scenarios, we're going to need 65 million metric tons of carbon removal every year, starting in 2045. Again, that's not sequestration. Sequestration counts as part of the 85% of emissions reductions. This is the 15% other that we have to close the gap. And this year, we've got the scoping plan to review and lots of other things to work on to hold everyone's feet to the fire and move much faster. The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. I know that you are all working to save it. Appreciate your efforts. There's lots of room for advocacy at the local level, at the state, at the regional level, and at the state level, and really get our two counties, Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, working together as well. And every church, every building, every synagogue, every entity that we get to electrify helps. It brings down the cost for everyone else. And all these policies are needed, as we say, because this is about restructuring our economy in every way. And so everybody's help is needed. Thank you for what you're doing. Hope you enjoyed that discussion. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Senator Becker, thank you so much. What an amazing overview of public policy in California and the work that you're doing to further all of us and elevate all of us in the space of climate activism and climate change, adaptation, mitigation, and support for communities in the most need in the state of California. Thank you for spending your time with us this evening. Katie, I'm going to turn it over to you for next steps.
We would like to take a moment to honor a longtime friend and supporter of Acterra who we lost in January, Walt Hayes. Walt was a former San Jose City Council member and lifelong environmentalist and served on our advisory board for many years. He was an honoree along with Kay Hayes at Acterra's 2017 Party for the Planet. For his tremendous environmental stewardship and activism, he will be dearly missed.